like to take the next 20 minutes or so to provide an important historical context as to how and why the poverty plan can work, and also put forth a call to action to deal with the root causes of poverty. I believe the events of the last couple of months have forced us to wrestle with the question of whether the very foundation upon which our society rests and should function is hopelessly flawed. Democratic self-governing societies are based upon consent and implied agreements between all sectors of the society that individual sacrifices are given in exchange for the betterment of a just society. Included in that proposition is the radical idea that all are created equal and everyone has the opportunity to live freely and everyone has the opportunity to pursue his or her dreams. Of course, what I'm talking about is the social compact as an idea that was brought forth in the 16th and 17th century by the philosophers Thomas Hobbes, John Locke, and Jacques Rousseau. So if this compact is designed to allow for the free flow of ideas, an economic system that is fair and provides the opportunity for everyone to benefit from the flow of goods and services, and the opportunity to develop as a contributing citizen based on education and or saleable skills, then how are we not questioning its usefulness at this point? Our tendency is to try to solve the outgrowth of the social compact without ever questioning the ground upon which that outgrowth comes. We reimagine systems and markets and organizations and institutions, but we don't reimagine the very basis to which we operate, which is the social compact. I submit to you that a social compact that is based upon lies, that has never reconciled the innate contradictions, can never produce the kind of outcomes that it is intended to produce. Call to action number one. We have to apply our creativity and innovation to reimagine and to reconfigure the social compact so that it is one based on truths, ethics, morality, and social and economic justice. We cannot do that while living in a de facto caste society that is self-perpetuating. So how do we reimagine the social compact? I believe we do that by speaking truth to power. Can we reimagine the economics that have led to poverty? On your left-hand side, of course, you have the challenges that are confronting us today. America's DNA is steeped in racism. On the right side, you have the ideal, which is the more perfect union. So can we reimagine the economics that have led to poverty? The basis upon which society was built is what Nicole Hannah-Jones refers to in her New York Times 1619 projects as a slavocracy, specifically a society whose prosperity is the root of 250 years of free labor and then another 150 years of Jim Crow, apartheid, and just plain old racism. Profits from Black people's stolen labor helped to pay the nation's Revolutionary War debt, financed our most prestigious universities, and according to Hannah-Jones, it was the relentless buying, selling, insuring, and financing of Black bodies and the products of their labor that made Wall Street a thriving banking, insurance, and trading sector, and New York City the financial capital of the world. The country's economy, its wealth, and its inequality is deeply rooted in these facts. As the most powerful and will not ignore these facts, the inevitable outcome of these injustices is poverty. I'd like to take a second to read from Ta-Nehisi Coates' Between the World and Me. But part of what I know is that there is the burden of living among dreamers, and there is the extra burden of your country telling you the dream is just, noble, and real, and you are crazy for seeing the corruption and smelling the sulfur. For this innocence, they nullify your anger, your fear, until you are coming and going, and you find yourself inveighing against yourselves. Really, inveighing against your own humanity and raging against the crime in your ghetto because you are powerless before the great crime of history that brought the ghettos to be. Can we reimagine the police state that occupies our streets? Can we reimagine by recognizing that modern policing is the offspring of plantation and slave policing, specifically the Fugitive Slave Acts of 1793 and 1850? And living in Philadelphia, do we recognize the fact that the progeny of the modern police state is part of this legacy of protecting the plantations and of course protecting the women of the plantation states? Can we reimagine a school system to be fully funded and equitable across the nation? Despite the social compact's claim to the importance of an enlightened citizenry as essential to a self-governing people, the Constitution does not speak to the issues of education or how it's an equal right. We know that it is not. The funding is uneven and largely based on property taxes, which are correlated to wealth and privilege. Can we reimagine a system that doesn't demonize Black boys by viewing their energy as criminal or pre-criminal behavior? Why do we even talk about behavioral modification when so many Black boys are marked as troublemakers and then set off into a path into the criminal justice system? Rather than feeding the world's largest prison industrial complex, can we develop and support a system of free higher education? And then finally, white supremacy and reparations. White supremacy is an ethos. It's not a person or even an organization. It's a cultural belief. It permeates institutions and individuals. We know that there is a resurgence of racial violence against Black lives. We have a president who defends the celebration of the Confederate soldiers and symbols, including the Confederate flag. In addition to that, the more overt, we have seen the phenomena of the Karens of the world. Amy Cooper in particular, who was just recently indicted. We know that there are people that present themselves in the public as liberals, as allies of Blacks, but in private speak a different game. And I think this is a phenomenon that we all have a responsibility of dealing with. On the issue of reparations, can we at least study the issue? The pandemic has shown the country's ability to come up with over $2 trillion, $2 trillion with a T. Can we spend a fraction of that to come up with a Marshall Plan for public schools and the eradication of poverty, homelessness, unemployment, and universal health care? So if all that's not enough, now we're dealing with a pandemic. COVID-19 to further expose the inequities by pulling back the veil on this nation's false narrative. Research by McKinsey has shown the educational melt that will occur due to COVID-19. Their research created 3 different scenarios. One, which there will be hypothesizing a return to normalcy in September of this year, face-to-face, meaning would be the normal educational environment. The second would be face-to-face in January, and the third scenario would be face-to-face a year from now. So there's 3 scenarios. The first being face-to-face come this September. As you know, that's very debatable and very controversial now. The second will be face-to-face in January, and the third will be face-to-face in September. Based on that face-to-face and using the second scenario, the mid-range scenario, and in addition to having high quality remote learning experience, which includes a conducive learning environment, high-speed internet and hardware, some level of parental oversight, and just in general, an environment that's conducive to sustained silent reading, an opportunity to think, and an opportunity to read. Within 6 months, with the average melt for starting face-to-face in January will be 6 months. And that's across the board for all ethnic groups, all populations. Low-income Black and Brown students, that melt will be 9 to 10 months. Previous disruptions in the form of national calamities like hurricanes have shown that 14 to 20% of high school students never return. The expectation for this pandemic will add an additional 2 to 9%. So here you have a graph that shows on the left side the average of those who have quality remote learning environments. You see the blue is white population, about 38% have what you might consider quality. The next bar is the Black population with 14, and the next bar is Hispanic with 21. That 60 is the percentage of low-income individuals who do not have quality remote learning. We know that this is a fact of remote learning life. I know that there are those who believe the answer to the pandemic was just to push everybody into online learning. But from our own surveys and our own and just empirical evidence, we know that our students suffered because largely in part, everybody is now struggling for the household's internet bandwidth. Everyone is struggling to use the hardware that's available. And if you're a college student or a high school student, it's very likely that you have younger brothers and sisters that are home with you now, which doesn't lend itself to a quiet learning environment. So again, the learning loss for this period of time, this mid-range period of time, whereby face-to-face resumes in January, 6 months for whites, 10.3 months for Blacks, for African Americans, 9.2 months for Hispanics, and low income is almost an entire year. We will see that in the form of the increases in developmental education, the delay in being able to get into programs, academic programs and/or training, because we will have an influx and an explosion in the number of students that will need developmental education. The unemployment rates for African Americans during the short period within 2 months of the pandemic. already there was, a fairly significant equity gap between African Americans and whites. But what's most profound about this is during the time period between March 8th and March 24th, African American unemployment rates rose from 52% to 56.3%, where whites went down actually from 22 to 21%. So again, the point being the inequities that we're dealing with are quite profound. Call to action number 2, based on truth, disruption, innovation, and reengineering. I do believe we have to walk and chew gum at the same time. The poverty plan lays out a number of steps that can be taken to address the symptoms. We should address those issues, but I think we have to get at the root causes, which is the social compact that I've been talking about. This is built on the fallacy of American democracy. Truth telling is important. That means reimagining our society that is not based on a false narrative. In a very specific way, lean in unabashedly on the issues of racism, and in this day and at this point of inflection, specifically the Black Lives Matter issues. Community College of Philadelphia has stepped forward and been very vocal about this issue. Our faculty, our students have insisted that we have a clear and uncompromising voice on the issues of racism, and specifically as is articulated today through the Black Lives Matter movement. Through our public forums and town halls, we've had a number of virtual town halls and public meetings where we've had up to 500 people attend. So the thirst is there, and we hope that we can continue to that. The second is pushing, again, unabashedly on the issues of equity and inclusion. Community College of Philadelphia must do better in terms of hiring African American and Black and brown faculty and staff. We do pretty good with staff, but faculty, we've got a ways to go. I think that's Community College of Philadelphia's problem, but it is also all of the institutions and part of the ecosystem problem here in Philadelphia, whereby we have to generate a larger population of potential faculty, not just for Community College of Philadelphia, but for the other universities and colleges in the area as well. Education, business partnerships, incredibly important. I'm suggesting build educational partnerships at the design stage of startups. Too often we have organizations and businesses that come to the college and want to partner after their organization has been developed and just partner with the college as an add-on. I believe that those partnerships need to begin at the very design stage and need to be integral to the overall development of businesses, of startups, and other organizations that choose to view the college as a viable partner for the success of their programs. Establish ongoing curriculum feedback loops. This means look at both formative and summative data in order to improve the actions that are taking place and in order to make appropriate corrections to better realize the success of the programs. Internships, externships, and jobs. I think it's incredibly important, again, going back to the design stage, that the partnerships are designed to ensure that at the end of the education and training, there's some type of real life job experience and some type of real life experience that the student can enjoy while finalizing and providing a capstone to their educational experience. And then finally, the third bullet that I have been emphasizing for quite some time now is the importance of an organic educational enterprise that represents a K-16 model. We have a lot of one-offs in the city, a lot of grant-supported opportunities for students if they are lucky enough to find those opportunities. But I think a K-16 model looks at the entirety of the educational enterprise from pre-K all the way up through higher education and then into the job market. That alignment is critical to the success of students. So what a student learns in kindergarten and first grade is the platform for what they ultimately will need to learn once they get to higher education. That K-16 model means more than just, grant programs or, right now we have a lot of dual enrollment programs. The K-16 model means the complete organic integration of higher education with K-12. So that's teacher training, that's, everything from financial aid to teacher training and assessment. We have multiple stops of assessment along the educational trajectory. That should not necessarily be the case because it's the same student, and we should know how they're going to do in college based on what they're doing in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. There's data to support that, and there's a number of projects out there in the country that do that. I'm suggesting that we need to make this effort writ large across the country and specifically in Philadelphia. Workforce development challenges and opportunities. When I talk about workforce development, I know that the common thinking is to view it in terms of non-credit certificates, short-term trainings, and so forth. And those are incredibly important areas. But it's also Associate of Arts degrees, it's AAS degrees. Our nursing students probably get placed at about 100%. Most jobs require more than a high school credential, and it really does require some fairly high degree of higher education. So I think it's very important to view workforce development in its entirety and look at it in terms of the degrees and certificates. Some of the challenges that we're confronted right now in the midst of this pandemic, of course, is budget cuts. Everybody's cutting budgets, everybody's cutting back. The Commonwealth is cutting back. And we are trying to wrestle to find ways where we can recoup and restart some of the projects and some of the things that we've done relative to workforce development. Employer job training cutbacks are part of the reality that we're dealing with now. So the employers who are looking to expand their job training, looking to expand their workforce, they have all cut back. Some of the partnerships and some of the potential partnerships that we were negotiating were basically put on pause. An uncertain future. And the period of time before the pandemic, those of us involved in workforce development and higher education were looking at jobs for the future, the automation of jobs, the artificial intelligence, machine learning, and so forth. Now, because the companies and the businesses are uncertain about where that future is, it has further clouded the outlook for higher education. So we need to work our way through that and figure out where the future of employment and jobs are. Adjustment to online instruction. Most of workforce development training is hands-on experience. So we have in the immediate had to move things to online, looking at simulations, modeling and simulations where possible, but it's pretty restrictive if we can't have the hands-on experience that really is conducive to career and technical training. Again, the emphasis on internships, cooperative learning, continuous and stackable credentials. We never want to put a person in a position where they're locked into a job for life because the job's train. And we need to embed the ability to think critically and to be adaptable to changing environments. So I think that's part of the opportunities that still are present in the world of higher education, specifically the community college, and we hope to be able to benefit by that. So the city's plan is based on 3 areas: social safety net, housing, workforce and education, credit and non-credit certificates and degrees. Under the social safety net banner, if you will, Community College of Philadelphia, I believe, continues to offer opportunities in a partnership manner. CCP, one of its major pillars has to do with external relationships, and we plan to double down on that. You know, I refer to it, and it is referred to as the 3rd rail of higher education. The first being, of course, research, the second, teaching and learning. The third is partnerships with the community. And we expect and will continue to do that. So specifically to the social safety net, we have CCP Cares, which is a very robust operation that looks at the partnerships in the communities around us and how we can further strengthen the safety net for our students who need social services, who need safety opportunities so that they can come to the college and be successful. We realized that many of the students that we were serving were also the clients of the social service agencies out in the community. So we've embarked upon this effort to make sure that we have again, an organic system in place to help students deal with those sort of bottom, you know, if you think of it in terms of Maslow's hierarchy, those bottom safety needs that they all need. So whether it's housing, whether it's food insecurity, or issues of healthcare or childcare or legal, we want to be able to provide a safety net that enables them to be able to receive the needs that they need. We have a very robust single stop. It's a national model that serves as the facilitation for these services. Our KEYS program, you have to be a recipient of TANF and be on public service in order to get into that program. Many of our most successful students came through the KEYS program. Our foster cares network deals with students who are emancipated from the foster care system. We do have a reentry program where individual citizens coming back are able to come to the college and begin to receive education and training. And then we have a women's shelters program. Although housing is an issue for our students, in addition to the issues of food security, food insecurity, I like to refer to it, and we're trying to deal with it. And I think that speaks directly to the second issue of the Philadelphia Poverty Plan, which is housing. Workforce and education. Again, we provide short-term certificates, short-term and long-term certificates, and as well as degree programs that lead through the applied sciences directly into programs. We are in the very early stages. Well, not the early, but the second phase of developing a career and advanced technology center out in West Philadelphia, which will allow us to further increase our capacity for providing career and technical training in areas such as welding, advanced manufacturing, up to the more advanced technologies like artificial intelligence and automation. The anchor for that will be our auto tech program. It will be one of the only in this region. Right now, there is none. The few that were there were either proprietary or they left. So we think that will add significantly to Philadelphia's poverty plan. And of course, as you know, we have partnerships with businesses throughout the community through our Power Up Your Business program, through eConsult data. They project in the area of $10 million increase into the local economy as a result of this program in a very specific way. I'd like to tout the WISTAR program as an example of internships. This program is very unique because even though it's a science program that focuses on that will focus on the cell and gene therapy business of the city, this program is not necessarily a program that's geared specifically for science students. The beauty of it is that it attracts students who never thought about science as a career prior to coming to the college. So we have individuals who are evening students who were, my favorite story is the young lady who was a waitress in South Philly, came to school because she knew she had to do something and saw a flyer about a summer internship, got involved, and now she's headed into a advanced degree in biotechnology. So WISTAR is a model program here. And then we have a number of scholarships that allow students to come to the college free. And as you know, and I'll end here, the mayor and city council approved the Cattle Scholarship, which will allow all high school students to come here and receive free tuition as a last dollar. I think nothing addresses the issue of poverty more than free education at the higher education level. That is an issue whose time has come. For those of you, as myself, who study the history of education, you know that high schools at one point cost as well. High schools at one point were for only those who could go to private academies or went to very specific religious organizations. It was not viewed as a public good. 100 years later, we're at that point with higher education, specifically community colleges. It is a public good. The track record is clear. And I think this Cato Scholarship will be transformative and is a deal maker here in Philadelphia. If I could sum it all up, and if we could very succinctly, free tuition, I think that is the answer. So many of our students come to the college with dreams to move on and to move up through the social ladder, but they're blocked by their inability to pay. So free tuition, I'm calling on as a major strategy for moving this agenda forward. And with that, I thank you for listening.